Hello, everybody. This is the Dance is Medicine podcast. I am Celine Sophia. I'm a dancer and neuroscientist, and I've created this podcast just so dancers can share their stories on how dance has helped them heal and how dance has helped them cope through various health problems. This podcast exists not only to motivate people to dance and be active, but to also have people being able to share their stories and how has dance been beneficial for them specifically, because the science proves some of the things, doesn't prove others, and there's science and there's what science says, and there's the actual stories and things that people lived. And I think it's as important to get to know those things, to have those stories coming out, and people who may be going through the same thing may feel connected and inspired with the guest dancers that I have. So with no further ado, let me introduce you to Jordan. She has been through a lot of health programs, and she has been using dance in order to cope, and she says that dance has been her biggest escape, a safe place. And I'm really excited to hear her story, because I think it's a story of bravery, and is a story of resilience, and it's just inspiring, like how the many health programs that she had is just so inspiring, that she has overcame that, and she has coped with so many different things whilst being a dancer. So Jordan, would you like to maybe explain this a bit better yourself, because it's your story, so it'll be awesome if you could first introduce yourself a little bit, and then if you could share whatever you feel comfortable sharing with us, we would all appreciate.
Yeah, for sure. So my name's Jordan. I am 22, and I started dancing when I was 6. My studio is Livermore School of Dance. I'm in Livermore, California, and I've studied for about 16 years under Shelly Shane Deeds, the co-owner there. So yeah, I started dancing when I was 6 and immediately fell in love with it, quit all my other activities to keep dancing, because it's really what brought me the most joy throughout my childhood and into adulthood. So I was a very healthy, active child, like totally, like didn't never got sick, was totally healthy until I was about 15. So I must have been my second year of high school. I started having weird respiratory issues and um, chronic pain, and we couldn't really figure out what was going on, and saw a bunch of different doctors that thought I had like asthma and all this other like lung problems, and I was on a bajillion different medications. None of it did anything. After about a year, we figured out that it was some new allergies to food that I'd developed that were causing like inflammation and causing respiratory issues. So cut out those foods, and I was doing better. I'd always been very prone to injuries growing up, but it was never anything like super serious. It was, oh, I'd sprained my ankle doing nothing, basically just like walking around the block. I'd like twist my ankle. It was random things. It was kind of funny. Like it was always the joke that I was the one always getting hurt doing stupid things. Didn't really think that much of it until maybe timeline gets kind of confusing, but around when I was 15, I started having a chronic joint pain, but it wasn't anything unmanageable until really out of high school. So maybe around 17 or 18 is when it got really bad, to the point where I couldn't really do any high impact activity because of knee pain and all that kind of stuff. And it was just 24/7 every single day for years was just in pain at on a normal day, probably on a scale of 1 to 10, like a 3 or 4 was typical. It was really never below that. And then it would shoot up to like an 8 or a 9, and there was nothing I could do about it. Over the counter pain medications like Tylenol and stuff like that didn't do anything. So I started going to different doctors probably around 18, being like, what's going on? Why am I in so much pain? They'd take x-rays, everything would be fine. They'd take blood samples, everything would be fine. I also have an anxiety disorder that I take medication for, so they would see that in my chart and be like, oh, then it's probably just, you're probably just anxious, or you're imagining it. It's all in your head, you're fine. Just ignore it, push through it, you're fine. And it got really discouraging. I probably saw 7 or 8 different doctors within the year of being 18 that just all said the same thing, that I was fine. There was nothing wrong with me. They couldn't find anything wrong with me. They wouldn't send me to any specialists because I was fine. I was healthy, I was young, too young to have all this pain. And it just got really, really discouraging, I guess. Constantly being told that it was in my head, and I started to be like, maybe it is in my head, maybe I don't. Like, I started questioning like the reality of my life, being like, am I crazy? Am I making this up? Is it because I have anxiety? But my anxiety disorder was pretty well controlled with my medication and treatment there, so I was like, I don't think it's related to my anxiety. But I eventually just kind of gave up, or trying to figure it out, because at this time I was like 19. I'd just gone through an internship with a new job, and it was really stressful and made my pain really, really bad. But nobody believed me. So, I mean, my family believed me. No medical professionals believed me, I should say. So I just kind of gave up on it. And then I watch a lot of YouTube. That's one of my guilty pleasures. And one of the YouTube groups that I watch, they're called the Try Guys. One of the members in there, his name's Zach Kornfeld, he released a video about how he dealt with chronic pain for his whole life and was recently diagnosed with ankylosing spondylitis, a form of arthritis. And I was like, okay, if he can go through all that and eventually get someone to listen to him, then I can do it too. So I pushed further. I found a new doctor who would actually give me referrals to people. So I got referred to a rheumatologist who told me I have fibromyalgia, and I was 19 when they told me that, almost 20, I think. So I kind of was just rolling with that. They sent me to a pain management clinic, and they agreed that it was fibromyalgia, but they thought there was something else going on due to hypermobility. I've always been relatively flexible, not anything crazy. At least not anything crazy in the dance world, because you see so many like incredibly flexible people in the dance world that I didn't think anything of mine, because it wasn't as extreme as some other people's. But most of my flexibilities come from my joints and not my like muscles. So I didn't notice that when I was growing up, but it all makes sense now. So they sent me to a geneticist who evaluated me for Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome, which is, for those of you that don't know, a group of genetic connective tissue diseases. So I think there's currently 14 known subtypes. I could be off 1 or 2 on that. They're discovering more like constantly. But I have type 3, which is known as Hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome, or HEDS. So I was diagnosed with that when I was 20, and discovered that I had joint damage in mostly my knees and lower extremities from doing impact activity like running or dancing and jumping and stuff like that. So they basically told me not to dance anymore, and I did not listen to that. I stopped doing a lot of the high impact jumping stuff. My dance teacher Shelly isn't like, she's incredible, and I credit the fact that I'm still dancing to her, because when I got sick in high school, I talked to her about it, and she was like, "Okay, then you get to pace yourself and do what you can, and don't do what you can't do. So push yourself, but don't push yourself to the point where you get hurt." And she would let me sit out of things in class, and never thought that I was faking it just because I didn't want to do a Grand Allegro that day. She always supported me through all of my tests and diagnoses, and I'm just really grateful for her for that. So yeah, I got my EDS diagnosis when I was 20, and still currently it's been almost 2 years since I got diagnosed with that, and I still live at a baseline of pain of a 3 or 4 on the pain scale, because I'm young and doctors don't want to put me on medications or try experimental treatments because it's expensive, and my insurance is kind of stingy, and I don't have the money to pay for it out of pocket. So I really have leaned into dance over the past few years to like get me through my tough days. Like even when I'm in a lot of pain, I could still go to class, and even if I couldn't dance that day, I could still be there, and I could still sit and watch the class, which for some people that's a little bit more painful to do, but for me it was something that it helped me cope, just being in the community of my fellow dancers and with my friends. Obviously that's changed with the pandemic going on, but uh, getting to take class on Zoom and from my home has been nice in a different way, where I kind of in the comfort of my own house, and if I need to sit out, I can just hop on my couch for a little bit, turn my camera off, and regroup. And then my last diagnosis that I got was, I think about 3 months ago, November, December last year. And I got diagnosed with postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, or POTS for short, which is basically like my blood pressure drops and my heart rate rises, and I can pass out really easily. Luckily, that hasn't been too big of an issue. It hasn't been that severe, but I get a racing heart rate, and I have to take in a lot of fluids and electrolytes to try and get my blood pressure to rise so that my heart rate will level out. So that one luckily hasn't interfered with my dancing too much, especially as over the last couple of years I've kind of tapered off of dancing so much. Like in high school I would dance 20 hours a week, and then now it's more like 1 to 5 depending, if that. Some weeks I don't even dance anymore, mostly due to my college schedule, not because I don't want to be. I would love to be, but I have to focus on my education a little bit now. So yeah, that's me, and dance has really been the thing that's kept me going through a lot of pain and a lot of medical trauma and testing and medication trials and all that. So yeah, that's me.
Thank you for sharing that. And it's curious because every dancer seems to always say the same in terms of, I was told not to dance, but then I just went on and danced anyways, and danced, but adjusted um, how I dance, and I think that's really key, because it's about adjusting dance to you and not yourself to dance. And the more it's important to also have that message that you don't have to have a healthy perfect body to dance. You don't have to be super flexible, or you just you need to have a body. That's it. And I feel like the dance world has passed this message that you have to be a lean, slim, athletic person with a super healthy body in order to be a dancer. And I think that shifted a little bit because now we see all kinds of bodies in the dance world, and I just love that. But it will also give this idea that, even if you have an injury, even if you don't have an arm, even if whatever it is, you can still be a dancer, because dance is part of us humans. um and like it doesn't, dance doesn't care about how your body is shaped. You can still adjust whatever dance you are doing. And then there's the other point I would like to mention, because you said your teacher was really supportive, and I think that's really crucial. And if there's any teachers listening to us now, it is important that we still support students um, through their health programs, because we, even though we're not doctors and we're not healers, and healers in the sense of we're not physiotherapists, or um, are specialized in whatever they're going through, we can still support them through dance and make them feel welcome. We can still try and adjust, help them adjust what we are teaching to their own body constraints and circumstances. And it's important to still let them know that it's okay. You're still welcome in class, you're still welcome in the performance and the group performance. You're still welcome on stage. That is really crucial, because when we are sending away people who have injuries, and we see them as, they have an injury, they have a problem. So let's not, when you lose your focus on those students, you are really taking away from them something really important that they need for their recovery. And you did mention that, Jordan, that dance has helped you cope so much. And it's not saying that dance will heal this student problem, and it's really important, but it is part of the healing process, if that makes sense. And it's part of the coping, because a lot of the healing process comes from how do you cope. And if you have that extra tool, it becomes even more important. So I would like to ask you just one question. How would you think? So, what impact would have on you if your teacher wasn't supportive, for instance? How would have affected you? Because obviously that was a crucial point, that is to have the teacher. And we students, we look up at our teachers. We want them to be proud. We want them to approve us, which is, it's normal. We're learning from the teacher, and we want to have our learning approved. And then that becomes really crucial. So how would you have, imagine if that didn't happen, how would that have impacted you?
Yeah, I think I probably would have had to quit dancing when I was about 15, when everything first started. And that would have been like devastating. I spent over 15 hours a week dancing throughout high school. And it would have taken away the one thing that has always felt normal and felt natural for me. It would take away that one place where I felt like I could go and it didn't matter what was going on in my personal life. It didn't matter what was going on in my health journey. But yeah, if my teacher wasn't as incredible and supportive as she was, I definitely would not have been able to keep dancing past that year. Probably, I guess that was my sophomore year of high school, I think I said. And that, like, thinking back over all the years that I've danced since then, not having those memories and not having those friendships that I built. My studio was a not competition studio, which I was very grateful for. Nothing wrong with competition if that's your thing. It's very much not my thing. And I built some lifelong friendships there. And knowing that if I had to quit dancing when I was 15, that some of my best friends in my life now would not be in my life is pretty would be pretty devastating. So I really accredit a big portion of who I am today to my teacher for allowing me to pace myself and keep dancing even when a lot of other teachers would have just been like, well, you're not on the same level, or you can't do X, Y, and Z, so I don't want you at my studio, or I don't want you to perform with my company. I never had to miss a performance. I was always granted the ability to pull out of a dance if I needed to, which I never did, but that's because I'm stubborn, not because I probably should have at some point. But that's not my teacher's fault. That's me, because I'm a stubborn individual. But yeah, no matter what was going on, whether it was an injury during a performance or just a lot of pain between dances, my teacher would always check on me during intermission of our shows, even though she's the director of the show and obviously had a lot of other things going on. She always made time to come back to the green room and find me and make sure that I was doing okay and that I was good to go. So yeah, if I didn't have that support in my life, I really think that I would have had to quit a long, long time ago. And I'm super, super grateful for everything that she's done for me and everything that she's rearranged to make it work for me.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, so this is how crucial it is that, you know, I feel like we as dancers and teachers, dance teachers, we forget that this is how powerful dance can be in helping people cope, and it's up to us to always ensure that they have that tool. Also, I always ask two questions. So the first one is, what advice would you give to people going through the health programs that you went through? And in this case, it could be dancers or non-dancers. What advice would you give to them? But especially dancers, because, you know, let's say someone is listening to us and they have been through one of the health programs you have, and they are just thinking, okay, what would you like to tell them? It doesn't have to be an advice. What would you like to tell them?
Yeah, I would say you know your body better than anybody. Uh, you know when a pain or a symptom is new and not normal. For dancers especially, we're so used to pushing through the pain and, you know, no pain, no gain. And to a certain extent, yes, but there's another level of pain that you reach that's not healthy. So it's not like, oh, I'm so sore after class. It's like, I cannot walk because I'm in so much pain. So if you're experiencing new symptoms and new levels of pain and new types of pain that you know aren't normal, don't let a doctor tell you that it is normal, because they're not living your experience. Uh, Whatever pain disorder that may be. For me, fibromyalgia is considered like an old people disease, uh, something that usually like postmenopausal women have, and I'm 22 and I've had it since I was, I don't know, 16 maybe. Wasn't diagnosed then, but it illnesses don't have an age limit. It's maybe more common in a certain age group, but just because you don't fit the typical demographic doesn't mean that it's not your reality. And for people with EDS or symptoms of EDS basically, the main symptom is it causes a lot of joint laxity and partial dislocations and full joint dislocations. So if your like joints are like loose and wiggly and like, it sounds super weird, but if you've experienced it, you know what I'm talking about. Like, that's not normal. Um, that's different than flexibility. And EDS is rare. I have probably a team of 10 to 15 doctors that I see for different things, and two of them know what it is. And only one of them is like a specialist in it. So do your research. I know everyone's like, don't go to Dr. Google, but Dr. Google is what saved me multiple times because doctors aren't as well trained in rare diseases. So if you think something is wrong, you're probably right. Um, don't go to WebMD because they're just going to tell you it's like they say everything's cancer. If you have a headache, it's cancer. And but yeah, and for dancers especially, like we have such a high pain tolerance and such like a high threshold for being able to push through things. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Um, yeah, so just if people are trying to tell you that things are normal, but you know, like in the core of your being that it's not normal, don't give up, speak out, keep searching, fight for your health because it is worth it and will give you a higher quality of life overall the sooner you can get things figured out.
That was great advice. I like the fact that we have a higher pain tolerance, and just because you can doesn't mean you should. I love that. Thank you. And then the last question will be, so part of my purpose is to kind of like encourage people who don't dance to start dancing, because I think dance is an amazing thing and can really help people. But I feel like people are very if dance is not your thing, that's fine, but sometimes dance, people like dance, but they kind of have this resistance to start dancing because they think it's, you need to be talented, you need to be flexible, you need this and this and that. So what would you say to people who are non-dancers, so maybe listening to us right now? What would you tell them to kind of like encourage them to really embrace dance?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I have gotten several of my friends to at least take a dance class with me in the past, and it's like it's just so fun. If you're not a dancer or it just seems like it's not your thing or you think that you're not good at it, it really doesn't matter. Take a recreational class or even just like go in your room, close your door, put some headphones in, or if you're home alone, just blast your music, uh, and just listen to it, feel it in your soul, and move how you feel led to move. It doesn't have to be like a choreographed piece from Swan Lake. It doesn't have to be something you've seen on like So You Think You Can Dance. You can literally just move to the music, dance like nobody's watching, and just really see how refreshed you feel when the song ends. And if you can, I really encourage you to take a recreational class, whether it be like contemporary, jazz, ballet, modern, hip hop, whatever. It's all an expression of how we feel inside, and it's it's like hard to explain until you experience it, but it's so freeing to just feel music in your body and move your body with the music. And if you look stupid, who cares? It doesn't matter if you look stupid or not. Um, it's about how you feel, and it's about how dancing makes you feel and how music makes you feel. And like I said, if you're not comfortable doing it in front of people, just do it by yourself. And but I do encourage you to work up the courage to take a class and just let loose and have fun, because it really is a sense of freedom that nothing else that I've experienced in my life has brought to me.
Wow, I love that. That's good advice. Thank you. Um, so yeah, that's the end of the podcast. Unless if you have anything else to say, Jordan, feel free to say. So if anything pops up into your mind and you would like to share, like anything that I haven't asked specifically, feel free to do so. So I don't know if you have anything else.
No, I think that's it. All your questions are great, and I said everything that I had on my mind.
Awesome, thank you. So then again, thank you so much for being here. I'm very grateful for the dancers who agree to share their stories, because when we share stories, we are sharing some vulnerability, and It's just brave and inspiring that people are coming here voluntarily to share their stories, and they inspire people who are listening. They inspire me each time, and it's just great. So thank you so much for that. For the people listening, thank you for being here with us, listening with us, and I'll see you again in the next podcast.